Hey everybody, how are y'all? I know I didn't do the countdown. Sorry about that. It's been an interesting week. I'm not sure how your week's going, but it's been really super interesting around my life. Andy will be on with us shortly, I hope, because if y'all want to hear about metals, we may be in trouble if that's left up to me. I do. Oh, he's 5 minutes behind. He just texted me. So y'all have to sit here and listen to me talk. Tonight is Thirsty Thursday, and we know that that is interesting on all sides. I never know who's going to show up until the last minute. Every now and then I get confirmation ahead of time, but it's been a real interesting week, y'all. It's just been weird. I don't know if we're at the process of all of these things coming to fruition at once, whether it's good or bad that's pushing back so hard. I mean, you've been with me before when I've done the whiteboard and I've sat down and just kind of listed out all this stuff on all the different rabbit holes. This week, my whiteboard would be the things that we heard, especially if you follow Q, that would need to that were interesting things like trains and planes. All of Germany's planes with Lithuania, and I know I'm not saying that right. They were grounded at one point. We've had places that have had major power outages. Um, you had 3 train wrecks that have really been talked about, but I believe that there was actually 1 or 2 more that haven't even been discussed, and I'm still trying to get where those were. We've seen a lot of information with mainstream media covering the one in Ohio in East Palestine. Well, number one, that's an interesting name of where that train actually derailed. There's also been a video that I caught that they were fixing to come out with an app on a bracelet or like 3 or 4 different devices that for their EMT services in that little town, they were doing like this trial thing. They were giving them to everyone. And you'd be able to log on to it from any smartphone to find out like vitals, like if the EMTs weren't at an emergency, but somebody was having a heart attack in their house, that they could track their vitals right there. So that was rolling out like a program for that whole community. And I'm not sure if that's tied to that or not, but that's really weird. The bizarre thing is we hear that it's been no big deal, but when you see some of the footage from the people that actually live right around there, half of the people I've read have said, it's sunny skies, we've got no problems, there's no big deal. And then part of the things I'm seeing says we have dead fish, they're floating in the water, there's like a film of chemicals over the water. Was the train wreck the cause of all that? Or was something done after the train wreck? It's just leaving me with a lot of confusion. But yesterday, as a child of God and being very attuned to the spiritual realm around me, yesterday was awful. I was an awful human yesterday. I didn't even want to do the show last night. It took a lot of prayer for me to even get my clothes on and my makeup on and make myself do it, because yesterday was a day, and every single human I've talked to that comes in contact with, some of the people that were around and things like that, everybody had a rough day yesterday. And it's been a week like that that's been really strange. I would ask you all to be very careful with your discernment right now. If you land your eyes on someone's videos or pages and things as you search and try to get real news, guard your heart and guard your mind and be very attuned to what you're paying attention to. I think we're fixing to start seeing a lot of things revealed. The weirdness about the balloons If you've watched Monkey Works for 2 years, he's been telling you there's been balloons up everywhere all over the United States. And he calls them spy balloons sometimes, they Google balloons sometimes. I don't know whether they're ours or someone else's. I'm not claiming to. Hey, everybody. Thanks for jumping on. I see Rumble. Uh, I know I've got some coming in from YouTube and probably Facebook. I just decided to throw it up everywhere. I feel like we are in a period of we're fixing to see a whole lot. And we're in the realm of it's either going to get a lot better for a bit or it's going to get a whole lot crappier. I think on the whole realm of things, if I look at what I know to be in my heart on the scriptures and what I feel about that, we're going to see more of that play out. I know that I'm talking to some of my friends that are in the medical society, and they're seeing people drop dead everywhere. And even if they're not dying, they're having heart issues, strokes. I mean, and yes, they've taken the shot. I'll just leave it at that. I'm not saying any type, but I'm just saying there's, I'm just going to leave that laying there because there's a lot of places that probably wouldn't like me accentuating on any of that, but that's a heaviness of the atmosphere right now that I don't believe that we have really set our minds and hearts that we're prepared for. But you better get there. And I pray for all of you. I pray for you every day, just like I do my close friends and family, that the world needs to be ready for where we're headed. We did that quantum stellar class last night. If you didn't watch that, there's been 3 Wednesday nights of doing that. We're going to try to keep Emily and Cranker coming back for as long as they will, like every other Wednesday night, and then us do supplements in between. I did schedule next Wednesday nights. It's going to be Jeff Shepard from Right On Radio. Give us a little bit of a break from all the quantum stuff if that's over what you want to extend yourself in learning. But I do believe that that is going to be a bridge that going into the future, whether you call it the reset, the reawaken, the crash of the market, and us going into a different financial phase, we're working towards you're going to need to understand how to use like a lobster wallet. I do believe. And I believe that even in the Bible, it says we will go to a one world currency. Now, at some point, that currency may be for the believers that we have to, relinquish it and walk away from it if it takes a mark, making that be something we have to use. I know for me what it would be in my heart and what I will do. But between now and then, if banking's changing and we're fixing to talk to Andy about the gold back currencies, it's coming, y'all. It's coming. There's more countries joining the BRICS nation than there is anybody believing that the US dollar is worth anything, because the petrodollar died about 3 or 4 weeks ago when Saudi Arabia stopped taking just US dollars. So I know that I'm not going to step off in my where my toes don't need to tread, and that's in the market of understanding all of that. But I do understand enough of it to know that we're headed somewhere that the United States is going to change. It's already changed. It had changed the last 30 or 40, 60 years. Ever since Kennedy, we've been on a decline of letting more and more slip into, we've slid into the sewer, y'all. And I don't know about y'all, but my daddy installed septic tanks for a living. My brother and my dad, they dug the ditch, they put the pipes in, you put the concrete tank in. And then when somebody had problems with it and you had to dig it up, or you had to take the top off and figure out what was going on, that wasn't a day anybody really wanted to be in the house when they came home from work. That's the day where you told them to stand outside and just, you need to hose all that off because that's not even going into the washing machine smelling like that. You need to hose off because you're not coming into the house to even take a shower smelling like that. That is where America's at. We're just, it's awful. I mean, everything that we say that we never knew was wrong is wrong now. And then it's almost made all of us afraid to speak our mind. And if you weren't on the show last night, I got on and I had on a necklace, and it was one of my favorite little necklaces. I won it for a little thing that I did way back when I did Mary Kay. And it is it was a triangle. It's not a real diamond, but I mean, it was, it's probably not even a CZ. It's just, a glass. It's a triangle though. And then it's got a layer on the outside of little baguette stones all the way around it. It's just one of my little favorite things, and it's pretty and it's sparkly, and I like sparkly. Can y'all see my little fox? Isn't it so cute? Yep, there you go. My little happy fox. But the deal is, I can't even wear my jewelry anymore without freaking out. I told y'all I had a ruby ring that I inherited from my mother that my stepfather gave her because that was her birthstone. And it's made me nervous to wear my jewelry because of everything I've learned. That's how far we are in the sewer, y'all. America let it go. And I think that fall was when we let Roe versus Wade pass. Thank God that's been, pulled back. But look how many years it took and how many babies were sacrificed during that time period legally. And now some of the states are still fighting that and wanting to be able to kill a child up until a month after they're born. Yo, that's just straight up murder. That's murder. You wrap that in anything you want, and it's murder. Oh, there's my girl, Christine. Hey, wish you were here. Y'all, I'm so excited. We got a special guest, and he just popped in the background. You ready to go, Andy? I've been sitting here just kind of having to talk to them, and they were ready for you. And I kind of mentioned money, and I said, "Ooh, I'm going to stop that right there. I'm not saying nothing else."
Good to see you
How
again,
are you?
Trina. I'm well. How are you?
I am fantastic, sir. I'm still not pushing up daisies yet. I'm on the right side of the dirt and
Oh, that's
breathing
good.
well. Yeah.
That's
How are
good.
you?
I am busier than a one-legged cowboy in a butt-kicking contest. Sorry, I'm late. I've had between yesterday, today, and tomorrow will be 15 interviews. It's been crazy. But it's a blessing. I feel honored to be asked to be on people's shows just like yours. So I'm sorry for keeping you and everyone waiting, but glad to be here. Thanks for having me back.
You're welcome. Do you feel like you should just tape yourself and send it to everybody and say, "Hey, just play this"? I'm saying the same thing 15 times in a row.
It's not even that as much as it is the emails and the text messages and the phone calls on top of all of that gets a little bit tiring because I end up repeating what I said over and over and over and over and over again. But you know what? It's a good thing. Look, I've done this for 33 years, and I remember wishing that the phones would ring or that I'd be asked to be a presenter at a conference or whatnot. So there's no sense in feeling bad for me. It's just it's crazy. It's a crazy time. It's emblematic of people being concerned and frightened. And if nothing else, I think there is a growing sense of anxiety. Maybe that has something to do with the fact that no one trusts our government anymore, and that no one's seen our president through all of this nonsense with the balloons and with the train derailments. I mean, where's the leadership? And I think people are waking up to the fact that there are issues, there are problems, and with that, we see an uptick in demand for our business and for me to talk about it. So I feel blessed, and like I said, I'm glad to be here and part of what you're doing. It's been too long.
Awesome. Well, we know you've been really busy because we know the world's falling apart at the seams. And
yes, ma'am.
But some of that falling apart makes some of it come together for you, I understand. And
Well, it does. I mean, we sell insurance against a broken system, and that's really the way that I look at precious metals as wealth, historical wealth. I've probably said on your show before that's lived through 2 world wars and German hyperinflation and the Great Depression and every pandemic, and is still considered immutable wealth, to which the central banks of the world have accumulated more of that immutable wealth than at any time in the last 55 years, the second most in history on record. So the most influential, well-informed, wealthy people on the planet are using this weakness in the price by their own makings, by suppressing the levered suppression of the futures market to accumulate copious amounts of gold and silver. We call that de-dollarizing. And there's an awful lot of that going on right now.
yeah. So just to give everybody a little bit of a background, I think the last time we talked that the BRICS nations was just still the actual BRICS back in like August, and only a couple of countries had talked to them about coming on and being joining BRICS.
Right.
How many you think decided to jump on that boat in the last 6 months?
Well, there's been a lot. There's been 13 that we know about for sure, but the list is really much bigger than that. When you talk about let me see if I can give you the exact, because there's a whole bunch of other countries that have joined on as well. So I'll give you those numbers here in 1 second. Bear with me. The numbers are growing by the day, and that's one of the really concerning things, is that a lot of these countries that are accumulating so much gold are actually also joining the BRICS nations. So bear with me 1 second. I'm sorry, I should have had that handy. It's certainly not just Brazil, Russia, China, India, and South Africa anymore. That is for darn sure. Okay, so it is, I apologize, I should have had that ready. I thought it would be right here, but give me 1 second.
That's okay. You're fine.
So on the belt, okay, here it is. So we have Algeria, Argentina, and Iran, and the United Arab Emirates. They've all applied, along with Nicaragua, Turkey, Indonesia, Senegal, Nigeria, Afghanistan, Egypt, Kazakhstan, and Saudi Arabia. So the Saudi Arabia is the big one, of course, and you have the BRICS plus countries that have all been invited or are in the middle of dialogue. And these are all countries that, when we talk about geographics, Central and Latin America with Brazil, the Caucasus region with Russia, Central Asia with India, South Asia with China. And these are the countries that are in process of joining. That would be Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Panama, Bolivia, Chile, Cuba, Ecuador, Peru, Uruguay, Venezuela, Azerbaijan, Mongolia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Vietnam. The list grows by the day. And, when you talk about this growing chorus of countries that are joining together, whether it be with the BRICS or the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is about 60% of human population, and that's Afghanistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Belarus, Cambodia, Kuwait, Maldives, Mongolia, Myanmar, Nepal, Saudi Arabia, Sri Lanka, Turkey, Turkmenistan, and Qatar. That's 60% of the world's population. They've come out and said they're going to issue a gold-backed settlement currency for the Eurasian nation. But when you put the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the BRICS nations, and the Belt Road Initiative, all of these countries are coalescing together against the West, you're talking north of 85% of human population. And it's interesting when you talk about these countries, the amount of gold that they have as a percentage of their reserves. Venezuela has 82% of their reserves in gold. They're joining the BRICS. Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Bolivia, all joining the BRICS, 65%, 63%, and 55% respectively. As is Belarus, Turkey, Pakistan, and Kyrgyzstan. They're joining the BRICS. Turkey was the largest importer of gold in the world last year, and they're joining BRICS. They're at 29%, Belarus at 40%, Pakistan 29%, Kyrgyzstan 22%. All of these countries that are joining this chorus of countries are using gold as their placeholder at the table, so that everyone gets equal footing. When you talk about equal footing, you know, you look at the International Monetary Fund, which is 150 countries from around the world, who just came out with a report that says gold, a international reserve, a barbarous relic no more. You got the IMF saying gold is integral to what's coming. But the US has veto power there. I think their percentage of influence is over 17%. They can veto things that are brought up at the IMF. That's not the way it works at the BRICS. The BRICS, their presidency rotates, and I'm not sure what the term is, if it's 1 or 2 or 4 years, but this year it moves to South Africa. So you're dealing with a rotating set of power with the presidency, along with an admission by the BRICS nations that they are going to issue a commodity-backed reserve currency. Now, if you want to make a currency that is bringing together different cultures and different heritages, kind of think of the euro, how it didn't work because you had different cultures and heritages and backgrounds, and some people didn't like other people, and well, it didn't really work. Well, if you're doing this together in what is a much more contentious part of the world, the way that you make it work, first of all, the rallying cries against the West and their hypocrisy and their sanctions and you know, the hegemony and all of the things that bring the rallying cry, that bring everyone to the table. But the way that they're doing it is using commodities like gold. We're told it will be pegged to a new system. It'll be pegged to a distributed ledger technology, probably on the heels of the Chinese digital yuan, which has been working for 4 years since before the Beijing Winter Olympics. They will use the rails of that to back the new system and show what every country has pledged to the currency. The backing will be backed by commodities that each country will pledge. Now look at all of these countries that are joining, that are ramping up their gold purchases, like Egypt, who is now pledged to join, and they have increased their gold holdings by 33% in 1 year, and they are accumulating it at one of the fastest speeds per capita in the world. Turkey bought more gold than anyone last year. They just joined the BRICS. All of these countries are accumulating commodities, mostly gold, to pledge, I believe, to a new system that will be denominated by transparency on a distributed ledger and on commodities instead of debt instruments and an opaque view of what's going on here in the West, where they keep changing the metrics, changing the figures, changing the way that they engage inflation, getting rid of things like M3, which is the broadest measure of the money supply. They are not transparent. They're anything but, and it's backed on U.S. treasuries, which is nothing but debt issued by an insolvent country. So you look at what's happening in BRICS. They are bringing on more and more and more countries that are using commodities like gold to give them equal footing at the table, which I think is the only way that you make a world reserve currency work, where you peg it to something so that the politicians don't have the ability to do what they've always done since the beginning of time, and that is choose inflation over the tough decisions over austerity.
Well, I was having a discussion with somebody the other day that when we look at it from a biblical standpoint, where we're rolling into as a world with everything that's fulfilling the book of Revelations right now. It's crazy. But I said, where in the scripture did we ever see that there was a paper dollar? I mean,
you don't see cryptocurrencies either. The only commodity that every central bank owns is gold. And I don't know how many hundreds of times gold and silver are mentioned in the Bible. They're biblical metals that have outlived 2 world wars, German hyperinflation, the Great Depression, and every pandemic, going all the way back to biblical times, and is still considered money and wealth today. And when you realize that the central banks as a group have bought more gold than in any time in the last 55 years, it tells you the importance of it. The second most in history. they look at it as wealth. And I think they realize the West screwed the pooch by disrespecting, if you will, the privilege of being the steward of the world reserve currency. This is, I think, what you're seeing as a result of it is a exodus out of the system into a new system that will be backed by something that does not allow politicians or central banks to print away their debt and to print themselves into prosperity.
Absolutely. Well, do y'all deal in copper also?
No, we don't. If I were going to buy copper, I'd buy Freeport-McMoRan stock. It's too bulky, it's too hard to own, and people don't really understand it in terms of a precious metal. So while you can see how important copper really is, by all you need to do is just look at the amount of copper that China has recently accumulated. JP Morgan just put out a report the other day that says they own 20% of all the global reserves of copper. So, you know, not just copper too, you know, they're buying all of the commodities that they would look at as a war chest. Now, whether they're preparing for war or whether they are just accumulating the lion's share of the world's commodities, well, you know, that's up for debate, but they have accumulated a massive amount of hard commodities. JP Morgan came out with a report just the other day, and I mentioned this morning on Mark Z, that they currently hold 80% of the copper inventories, 70% of the global corn inventories, 51% of the global wheat, 46% of the global soybean inventory, 70% of the global crude inventory, oil, and 20% of the global aluminum, and on top of gobbling up all the gold and silver they can find. So these countries are using commodities as a substitute for currency. It is wealth. And there's a man who I respect tremendously. His name is Zoltán Pozsár. Kind of a strange name. I think he's Hungarian, if I'm not mistaken. But Zoltán used to work for the New York Federal Reserve. Now he works for UBS. And he's very famous for his writings. He said, we are moving into an era dominated by commodities rather than by debt instruments. And you can see that by looking at the movements of all of these countries that are accumulating commodities while we toil with debt instruments like treasuries that have lost 19, 20% over the last year as interest rates have risen. And we're missing the boat. When the rest of the world is looking to things that are real and transparent, we are focused on things that are opaque and are debt instruments. And I think that is the transition that is happening right in front of us.
Okay. I agree with that completely, because going on the biblical side of it, it goes back to, you know, everything that they bought, you know, besides silver and gold to do their stuff, it was like an omer of wheat or, you know, oil. Everything was, it was commodities. That was the importance of everything. And so I almost see us going back to that standard at this particular point in time.
Well, it makes sense. Commodities are what makes the world go around. You know, you can't build a house with U.S. treasuries, but you can with commodities like copper and wood and things that you would need to build an infrastructure. All of the hard commodities. Now, wood, let's throw that out. But the point of it is that, you know what I'm trying to say. You can't build an infrastructure with treasuries. You can with all of the hard commodities. And that's really what you're seeing the big money centers around the world are doing. It's called de-dollarization. And it's just another way of accumulating wealth in the form of assets that are needed and indispensable in the future. And I think we're making a mistake by not realizing that. You know, we talk about going green, yet you look at the majority of all the rare earth metals are found in the Asian continent. And, you know, there is a growing chorus from countries in Asia to enact a OPEC-style cartel for rare earth metals as well. So we haven't thought this one through very well. We want to go green, but we don't have the materials. They're all found in places like Indonesia and China. And the president of Indonesia, I think his name is Watutu or something along those lines, it just said, let's make a cartel just like OPEC, and we will control the price and the availability of rare earth metals. You need that to go green. If you want to make battery powered anything, you need that stuff. So these are crazy times that we're living in, no question about it. And the rest of the world has figured it out perhaps before we have. To your expeditious question, Gordon Brown, the exchequer of the UK, sold almost all of the UK's gold at $252 an ounce, like a complete moron, in 2000, 2002, somewhere in that neighborhood. They do have some, but the majority of their gold was sold at the bottom of the gold market. And had he held on to it, it would only be up 900%. But he sold almost all of it right at the beginning of the turn of the century.
Wow. You almost wonder if there wasn't a plan behind that and who was behind that.
Well, rising gold and silver is the kryptonite to the Western system. It signals the frailty of the system. And if gold and silver are moving higher, it doesn't matter what you try to pretend your currency is worth. There is a relationship between the strength of a currency and the price of gold. And if you want to suppress the price of gold while suppressing interest rates to create a perception or an illusion of wealth, which the wealth has done, then you have to step on the price of gold, because there is an inverse relationship between real interest rates and the price of gold. What it means is that if you have super low interest rates, you have no opportunity cost, or a very little one, to buy something that doesn't pay any interest, like gold. And so if you are going to suppress interest rates to incite people into pushing up real estate and stock and bond prices, which it does, then you want to step on the canary, and that's the price of gold. And certainly right around 2000, we embarked upon a 25-year cycle or 22-year cycle of suppressed interest rates. And with that, you want to step on the canary. That's the price of gold. Otherwise, it signals the reality. It's kind of like the little frail wizard behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz with the booming voice and the fire and the smoke. And you look behind the curtain, it's a little old guy. That's kind of what they're trying to avoid, is people pulling back the curtain. And you do that by stepping on the canary in the gold mine.
So we're hearing that a lot of the banks are closing and things like that. Do you think that's because of where we're at in the current situation with all the gold being purchased and it flipping to, do you think we're borderline and that they're fixing to announce we're going to go gold back?
I don't know if that's why the banks are closing. I think the banks are closing because they are systemically connected together, and they have virtually nothing in the way of reserve requirements. In fact, zero. During the pandemic, the 3 or 4% reserve requirements were brought down to zero, and the banks have been able to bet stupidly on derivatives and do things that have put their equity positions in, or their investment positions in, really big trouble, to the point where you have massive liabilities with nothing in the way of reserves that the banks have. And you're beginning, if you were to point your listeners to the November meeting, you can find this on YouTube, the November meeting of the FDIC Systemic Resolution Advisory Committee. These idiots, and it was filmed and it got out to YouTube, say things such as the members of this committee have much less confidence in the banking system as the public does. And although the public needs to know that we are close to having bank runs and bail-ins, no bailouts, but bail-ins, where you are now an unsecured creditor of the bank after 2008, and the bailouts, they changed the law to now you will be bailed in like a bankruptcy proceeding. But if we tell the public this, there will be runs on the bank. That is unavoidable at this point, that there will be banking problems, there will be runs on the bank and bail-ins, but we want to keep it quiet because the consequences of letting the public know this will be a problem. Well, what he was basically saying was, let's look at Credit Suisse. Credit Suisse is what is called a global systemically important bank. And would be like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs and Bank of America, including the massive Swiss Credit Suisse Bank. Well, they're in the midst of a death spiral. Their stock lost 15.64% of its value in one trading day last week. It's down to under $3 a share. They've lost $1.5 billion this quarter marking the 5th consecutive earnings loss. And last quarter, their depositors globally withdrew $100 billion in one quarter alone, the fourth quarter. This is what they're talking about. If a bank like Credit Suisse goes belly up, they're all incestuously and systemically tied together. The ramifications of that, because they all have derivatives with one another that are valued basis the counterparty's ability to perform. Well, if one of those counterparties goes bankrupt, what happens? It can bankrupt 12 other banks that are tied to those 14 banks that are tied to those banks. Yeah. That's what they're talking about, this systemic relationship. And that if this happens, it will filter its way into the US. You will find banks that go upside down. You will find banks that have horrible balance sheets that start to fail. And when people realize this, they will all run as fast as they can to pull out all their money. But remember, the reserve requirements are at zero. So the banks have all of these liabilities and no reserves. That's bad. And that's what you call a bail-in, where if you have in Cyprus, when this happened, anything over $100,000 was bailed in, meaning if you have $200,000 in the bank, you get to keep your 100, the other 100 goes into the kitty. And they use in a pro rata fashion, everyone's money goes in to bail in the bank, and anything that's left over is divvied back out in a pro rata fashion. It's very scary. And the bottom line is that what you are receiving in return is in nowhere near compensatory for the risk you are facing by being in what is a systemically sick banking system. And it's real. And when the FDIC Systemic Resolution Advisory Committee says this in their November meeting and it leaks out, I advise you all to go watch this and freak out when you do. You'll start taking money out of the bank.
I was fixing to say, or just go on down to the bank and just go ahead and take your money out.
Yeah, well, before you can't, it's not a bad idea.
Exactly. And that's actually, I started year before last. And that's why I ended up having some cash to where I could get some of the silver I bought, was just so I could put that in the safe and hang on to it for just a little while.
Yes, ma'am. That's the right idea.
So I know that you've probably racked you up some air mileage over the last couple months. I know you've been going to some of the different conventions and speaking at a few of them. What's your biggest takeaway on? I know when you go there, you meet with people from all over the world, not just US, correct?
Yeah, my last conference was in Vancouver just a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. Are they perceiving our country the way we're perceiving our country?
I don't know that they perceive our country any differently than they do their own. The European Union is a basket case. Japan is a basket case. Australia is a basket case. We are all in the West basket cases. I think there is an awakening by people that you don't buy gold and silver to get wealthy. You buy it because it is wealth. You buy it because it is safety from a system gone mad, from politicians that have their head buried 4 feet up their ass, and that a situation where you own this gold and silver with the respect that you hope you never need to use it. If you do, you're damn glad you have it. And not just for an emergency, could be a hell of an opportunity when the dust settles, where that cabin that you've always wanted to buy on the lake is at pennies on the dollar, or blue chip stocks that are now selling at 25 times price to earnings, paying about a 1% dividend, if that cumulatively, are now maybe paying a 7 or an 8% dividend and are trading at 6 or 7% price to earnings ratio, single digits. What I'm getting at, times the price to earnings ratio, single digits. So they used to buy stocks. People would never buy stocks back in the day unless they were trading at single digit PE ratio and paying a fat dividend. Maybe that's what it'll be. And if not, you give it to your kids. It's immutable wealth that no matter what happens, it will still have value. And that's what people are realizing. I think during Silver Squeeze, when silver became really popular a couple of years ago, a lot of people jumped on trying to make a quick buck. And you can be disappointed with the volatility of this market because what it is, it's the opposite. It's the mirror image of the dollar. And the Western governments and the U.S. government will not go down without a fight. And so they're going to fight tooth and nail what is the barometer of the health of the system, gold and silver. They want us to believe they're commodities. They're not. They speak to the sickness or the health of the dollar. So ultimately, it will accentuate itself, but they are going to make it very hard, kind of like riding a bull, to hang on. The bull wants to throw you off. But those that have the strong fingertips and can hang on in the end will not only survive, maybe even have a chance to thrive. And I think people are realizing that is the proper way to proceed, and what the rest of the world is doing, and that is to de-dollarize. And so that's kind of what we were seeing at the show.
Yeah. Well, I was just wondering because I know overall most Americans have not traveled much and not internationally in a long time. So you have those conversations. And I just feel like people have to look at the US and think we're the laughing butt of every joke right now because of our administration and what they're allowing to happen to our country.
Yeah, it's terrible. It is. It's horrible.
It's one of those things I never dreamed in my entire life I would hang my head and go, yeah, I'm an American.
You know, you could argue it's still the best country in the world. I do believe that
And
it
and
is.
I get that. I
But
do get
our
that.
administration is really inept and disappointing in making the wrong decisions. And, you know, this is a country where $5 billion for border security is too expensive, letting in 5 million people illegally, and yet $100 billion to the Ukraine for a frickin' war we have no business being in is okay. Where Janet Yellen raised the debt ceiling again by borrowing money from the Civil Servants Retirement Fund, the Postal Retirement Fund, and the Disabled Veterans Retirement Fund. She said she'll pay it back. And the very next story, after reading how we just borrowed all that money to raise the debt ceiling, that'd be kind of like you maxing out your credit cards and unilaterally saying, I'm going to raise my debt ceiling, and call American Express, say, give me another 20,000 in credit, please. That's exactly what we're doing. We're broke. We're insolvent. We raise the debt ceiling because we agree we won't go above this. And every time they do go above it, and this time they go above it by stealing from people who worked for the United States as a postal worker or as a civil servant or as a disabled veteran, we steal from them. We say we'll pay it back. And the very next story on Yahoo Finance made me want to throw up was that they just voted to give another $40 billion to the Ukraine. So on one hand, we're broke and insolvent and stealing from people who have worked for this country for their lives, in some cases given up their ability to move because they're now disabled.
Yeah.
And we're giving it to the Ukraine. It's just such a crock of shit. It drives me insane. And it makes me very angry. But that is the place that we find ourselves in, where the 1.75 trillion omnibus bill issued by a broke government, we have to borrow money to pay, that specifically says no money may be earmarked for U.S. border security, yet $410 million is earmarked for border security for Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, Tunisia, and Oman, but not the U.S. You couldn't ask for an administration that has their head buried further up their ass if you had to. And all of the things that they are doing are leading this country down the wrong path. The people in this country are great. And what this country stands for is great. It's unfortunate that the people that we voted into office, or maybe voted themselves into office, depending upon how you look at it, are leading us down a wrong, very dangerous path, where the State Department just told all Americans on Sunday living in or traveling in Russia to get out. So what does that tell you? How close are we to these types of problems, where right now Russia and China are in South Africa, their naval fleets are in South Africa doing joint military exercises in their naval exercises in South Africa. Those are three of the BRICS nations, South Africa, Russia, and China. But you have a unison of these countries that have a military combined much tougher than ours, much bigger than ours. And it's not so easy to push people around when you have a massive coalition of countries that are joining together against what the West is doing. And this is a very scary time in our history.
It is. It's scary and it's sad because, I mean, when you look at some of the people that represent our country and they don't know whether they need to wear their man clothes or woman clothes, and you're like, we're sending those kind of people. I mean, there are no words for where we're at, my friend. I mean, it's sad, it's sick, it's disgusting, and it's just shameful. And we are at a place that I know we do not stand as a strong nation to scare nor intimidate Russia or China at all anymore. I mean, I don't think that I think if they decided to make a move, we're in trouble. If we don't have a real commander in chief, like I'm praying that we do, we'd be in trouble.
Yeah,
And
well, God forbid something happens to President Biden, because what's behind door number 2 is far worse.
I'm still praying that the devolution side of things is accurate, and we possibly have a good commander in chief if that came up.
Well, that would be fantastic. That would be fantastic.
That's what I have to pray for. Somebody sent a message over here on Rumble. So when you see me not eye contact, I'm over here trying to read our Rumble chat too. It says, I heard a rumor that the state of Texas was joining BRICS.
No.
Have you heard anything about that?
No, that's not the case, as far as I know. But I've heard Mexico wants to join BRICS, and Egypt is joining BRICS, and Turkey is joining BRICS, and Saudi Arabia is joining BRICS. A lot of the countries that we have been allies with for a long time are joining BRICS. But if you told me that Texas was in the process of seceding from the nation, I would believe that. But not joining the BRICS countries, no, I think that's not for a while yet. That's a little bit off.
I think the secession would have to be happening before they could just join BRICS. They would have to be a standalone at that point. Right. But that's just my opinion.
100%.
So I know you were working on a new website. Below, I still have information at Miles Franklin. And in the subject line, you could put Trina or CJ for the Angel Warriors, whichever, if people are wanting to contact you.
info@milesfranklin.com. The new website has been the worst experience in my 33-year career. We've hired 2 developers, got rid of one in the process, have had people within our organization have to be moved out because of the way the ball was dropped. The website is basically done. It was finished, I think, a couple days ago. It is now in soft testing, beta launch. We're just a few short weeks away, excuse me, from launching it. It'll be very soon. In the meantime, yes, info@milesfranklin. Say that I'm here from the Angel Warrior Network. Sorry, I got a frog in my throat.
That's okay. Take your drink.
And we will make sure that your listeners are getting personalized service, a great price. We'll send them a price list. We'll answer any questions. We'll contact them if they need to be. And that's all they need to do. And we will make it a personalized service and a great experience. You have my word on that.
Awesome. And I do know also that if anyone has questions, because someone invariably always asks about changing over a 401k and rolling it in to be in metal back, Andy and them do have contacts that they can set you up with. You could just send them an email and say, hey, this is what I have going. Who do I have that you can send me a contact for? Am I correct in that?
That is exactly correct.
Okay. It's been a minute, so I wanted to make sure I still said that right.
Yes, ma'am.
We have enjoyed having you, and I know you are slam packed, sir, and I so appreciate your humbleness to still keep the little guy in the mix. And not that we'll hit everybody, but we've hit a few today. And if any of you are looking for somewhere that your money is safe, order you some silver and gold, because right now, I have started playing with my lobster wallet just a little bit. But like I tell everybody, I go to the horse track with $100 bill just for a little bit. And so you can do everything for just a little bit. Don't dive in heavy on that. But if you're going to dive in heavy somewhere, it'd be silver and gold. But
well, I appreciate that very much, Trina. And I'm always eager to help your listeners. And it was good to come back, and we'll do it again soon. And
awesome.
I hope you and yours stay well, and all you out there. Thanks for listening, and I'll look forward to picking up with y'all before too long, right where we left off.
Awesome, Andy. Have a great day.
Yeah,
bye.
You as well. Thank you.
God bless. You bet. Bye. Well, everybody, he is a man that is on the move, and I knew he had other appointments to get to. I appreciate you all dropping by on an early Thursday afternoon show. Tonight is Thirsty Thursday. I have no idea who's going to be here, who will show up, who will shoot me a text, who won't. by the time Andy gets around, we may could get him and Mark both on. They may both be ready for a cocktail at 7 o'clock tonight. But maybe we'll try to work that out sometimes. We'll hit them up. Trying to get money to the lobster wallet, the Hugh and the and the R's. Yes, I get that. I used my debit card and I did MoonPay. That's all I can say is it worked for me. I did have to call the bank. I did have to deal with the bank. And I said, that's my money that's in that account, and you're gonna do this for me. You'd approve any other $100 charge I had. Why will you not approve this? And they went up above and went to a manager and made sure they could. And they did. It took them 2 hours to make it to where it would clear, but that's how I did it. Apparently, you can withdraw money, and I may have this wrong, but you can withdraw money from your bank account. Well, I don't have that wrong. I know you can withdraw your money from your bank account. That was really kind of a blunt statement. But hey, you can take money from your account, and there are Coinbase, like actual physical locations. You can look them up online. And several of, I have been told, and I haven't done this yet, so I'm just repeating what some people have told me they have done. They have went and purchased that you put it into a machine, and the best I can have derived from this, and I will get clarification. So if y'all come back for Thirsty Thursday tonight, I'll try to get clarification from one of my contacts that this is how they do it. They take their money from their bank and they go to a local, like a Coinbase machine at a, I think they said they find them at a tobacco shop or one of these vape stores. I don't know, but I will try and figure that out. And they deposit it there. And by depositing it into that Coinbase machine, you can put it into your lobster wallet. I will try to get the exact steps on how you do that and what that's called. And even if I can't get it today to tell y'all tonight on the show, I'll get the information by Monday. And I'll also try to get it into our TAWN Quantum Talk room. I may put it in both of them, but I'll definitely get it in that room for you. You may try the debit card. Get nervous. Yeah, I was a little nervous, but honestly, as hard as it was, and they were only going to give me clearance for 24 hours to do this, it didn't make me super nervous, because if anybody tried to do it again or use it again, they were going to have as hard a time as I was having that day. So I just will put that out there for you. I don't think it was something that and I've been running bare minimum in my checking account. So even if they got my debit card, I don't use the debit card hardly for anything. I use cash. And I just don't leave a lot in there that if it did get jacked up, we've had our account compromised 3 times in the last 5 years. Taken over like 2,500 one time. So we have gotten to where we do very little with our debit card that's connected to our checking account. We've gotten to where we almost use a credit card so we could stop the pay on it and change that. Save us some silver and go. I'm just trying to read comments, and because I'm doing the show today by myself, I have a list from the Facebook and YouTubers, and then I have a list from the Rumble team over here. So I'm just trying to manage all of my stuff and keep y'all. If you have not seen much of me typing and talking, it's because I've got too much going on, and my ADD is like making me crazy, and I apologize for that. But I will get specific directions on how they were able to do to get finance in their lobster. I did not ask Andy a lot about that because that's not his focus. That's not his wheelhouse and his specialty. But I am learning that the tokens that are in the lobster and everything, they are commodity backed. And when you trace them back, that's how they are linked to the tokens that we are getting. And it's pretty much kind of a beta testing thing at the point that it's like you're investing in the stock market, but none of it's paying out yet. So lobster is kind of a promissory for the future, and you're able to get it on very little money right now. Like I said, I probably have enough that I'll have no problems. Extremely wealthy, and I've done all of it off of $100. So it's been fun trading tokens and buying tokens and doing this and that. And I've not ever invested any more than that. And I don't plan on it, y'all. That's just like on my currency, my foreign currency. As I have bought it along, it's been just a little bit here and a little bit there. And I didn't spend any more than what I would have, on a shopping if I wanted to buy a new outfit. So I just go with old clothes. That's just been the choices I've made. I make a pot of coffee. I don't go buy fancy coffee. You do what you do unless you have plenty to do all of it. So those are the choices I've made. And we have a lot of friends that like to do weekend trips and do things here and do things there. And this is going to be $200 to stay here, and that's going to be $500 to stay there, or you can do this whole weekend for $600. And we've chose not to do those things. I've done some of the, deals for the channel here, and most of those usually I have people I stay with and don't have a lot of out of pocket, because I've never been paid on any of the speaking engagements. Never made a dime on any of that, y'all. It's usually all out of pocket, my money out of pocket for gas and food and everything. Our channel just doesn't make a lot of money, and that's okay. I'm not whining. I'm just saying I don't have an income. So when there are people on here that talk about, well, I don't have enough to buy currency, I get it. I get it. I made a few of the t-shirts and sold a few t-shirts where I had a little bit to throw here and there. And that's been the way that I do that. I got a box over there in the floor. I need to sell the rest of them t-shirts. Y'all needing Thirsty Thursday Angel Warrior t-shirts? I got a few of those left. I need to start showing those and seeing if anybody wants them. But I do appreciate all of you coming on. And if you know anybody that's wanting to know about the silver and gold, the prices are only going to go up. I mean, right now, it is a good time to buy silver. And if you have it, buy gold. But silver is kind of a hot ticket type thing to buy. And in my Stellar wallet, or a lobster wallet, I actually have tokens that I have copper in there, because I know that copper is going to be something that's really important too in the future. And I don't know what the future is going to be. Hell, I wish there was just a rapture and I could go to heaven and not have to deal with any of this BS anymore. But I think heaven's actually going to be on earth, and we got to figure out how to clean this place up and eradicate the evil before we get to, reign and rule here. Or as my friend Gene Decode said the other day, this is the negative earth and there's a positive earth that's up there in the atmosphere, and we're just going to get to go there. So I'm thinking that probably qualifies as what I've been told might be the rapture, and I'm good with that, y'all. But if I am here and I am chosen to be here, I'm going to try to equip all of you with the best knowledge that we can to get you through the process and help everyone that you can come along. And the most important thing that I'll always go back to is, if you don't have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, please get one. Please develop that. Ask him to forgive you in your sins. Lay it all out there for him, not for anybody else. You ain't got to go through nobody else. You ain't got to say anything with any beads. You haven't got to do anything with, telling anybody and confessing to anyone. I mean, you can, but you don't have to. It's between you and him. Build that relationship, because that's the guarantee. That's the guarantee of where we're going. That's the guarantee of eternity. And that's what I'll probably go down on my own little sinking or soaring ship, whichever way it is. And that's just what I stand firm in, is what my relationship is with who my father is. And I've got a good daddy. I got a great big good old daddy, and he's got room in his house for everybody. So if you don't know him, just have a little talk. Just have a little talk. And with that being said, I love you all. I'm not even going to close in prayer, because what I had to say just then is about all he thinks he needs that y'all need to hear about him today. And we'll see you back here tonight at 7 p.m. Central. So that'd be 8 p.m. Eastern. And we got to get my girl on the West Coast in from work to where she can figure out what she wants to go with her Jameson tonight, unless she surprises me and goes a different route. Maybe we'll harass her about having a little squirt. And for y'all that don't know that joke, you might want to find that for Thirsty Thursday because it's pretty funny. I love you all very much. Be blessed and pay it forward somewhere today. Pay it forward. If not today, over the weekend. When you see somebody, whether it's just they need help picking something up, holding a door going in or out of somewhere, picking up their coffee, if you see them at a drive-through, just pay it forward somehow. And if nothing else, smiles are free, and so few of us give them away like we should. We get so much on our mind and we live in this crap hole. Just smile. Just give people a smile. With that, I love you guys. Have a great one.